The lichen race was just like any other member of the galactic community. Sapient, sentient, and technically advanced enough to engage with their neighbours. The only thing stopping them from earning the same respect as many of the other races was the fact that they never developed a fully bipedal form. Lichen primarily functioned while being quadrupeds. They can stand on their hind legs if needed, but lichen society doesn't see a need for this, and have only developed it as a means to reaching things such as the fruit from the trees they harvest or such activity. When they pilot their ships, they are sitting or standing on all fours, most controls being synced to a hands-free device that sits around the captain's neck. When they use tools, they often maneuver many objects with their mouths. Their opposable thumbs are believed to be a new trait they developed within the last decimillennium. So, interacting with other members of the galactic community wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. The average lichen stands at 0.9 meters at the shoulder, so they avoid the larger species, as they often don't take the time to notice them or acknowledge them. When they stand, they're roughly 1 meter tall, but standing erect is tiring, so holding conversations like this is rare. Many species that accepted their sapiens thought they were tricksters or spies. Others only encountered them when they stood up and got the impression that they only engaged in conversation if it involved a transactional favour. Of course, this was all assuming their neighbour accepted them as sentient. Many did not. "What a cute creature you have there," a Corturan said to the merchant as he reached out a feathered hand to pat their customer on the head. It was a common enough occurrence that lichen schools teach their children these social cues. Petting, while demeaning, was a good-natured gesture of affection or appreciation of a lichen's physical appearance. It was best to ask not to be petted right away, but it is expected to have the request ignored. Being a lichen in the galactic community often meant being beamed in via hologram to meetings or risk getting mistaken for a pet or wild creature. Because their architecture wasn't accommodating to many species, they didn't have many visitors to their homeworld, which only aggravated the issues of not being exposed to other cultures. Lichens simply do not feel like they belong in the galactic community, and the community has no idea. However, there are exceptions to this. They often meet at trade hubs or along trade routes due to lichens' aversion to interacting with other species, but once in a while a human encounters a lichen. These encounters are always jarring. The human often initiates interaction by extending a hand. It's a human culture thing, they know, but it's both surprising and endearing that humans think lichen will respond in kind. They do, of course, with a sniff and then their own paw-like hand. Humans tend to gush about a lichen's appearance before asking, seeking consent to pet them. The first few original interactions had lichens nervous about rejecting the request. Years of accepting that other species will pet them no matter the protest has settled a certain expectation in their minds about being petted. The first lichen to reject a human's request was gobsmacked when the human accepted the rejection and carried on as if nothing had happened. Humans originally spoke in a strange high-pitched tone towards a lichen, but as soon as the lichen in question speaks, their voice is lower to a more natural pitch. It's easy to spot a human who has never encountered a lichen before because of this. It is even more apparent when they see a lichen stand to accept a parcel or rummage for a bag. The startled noises are quite amusing. Over time, though, these once-in-a-blue-moon meetings, humans have given lichen the impression that they were equals. For a long time, this confused them. Humans were new to the galactic community, so many thought it was all a misunderstanding. Admittedly, it was one the lichen hoped wouldn't get cleared up. And in a cosmic sort of way, it never did. Humanity continued to be respectful of lichen, treating them as equals and with kindness. It was to the point where, much to the lichen race's surprise, the human ambassador has sent a member of the lichen internal council an invitation to join the Federation. Much discussion was had about this, about rather to accept it or decline, but ultimately the members of LIC decided against it. Humanity may insist that their place was with them at the table, but there was no doubt that the other members of the Federation disagreed. As far as the rest of the galaxy was concerned, lichen belonged on the floor at the feet of the other races. Having humanity at their side as something to look forward to, or to seek out amongst a sea of towering heads and reaching hands was something the lichen cherished. So when humanity left the Federation and became independent like them, their loss was felt all the way to the lichen homeworld. No longer did they see the human ship slowing down to wave at them. No longer did another race stoop low and extend a hand in greeting. Many lichen withdrew back to the old ways of only interacting with other races when in need of trade or services. And then humanity found their planet. To say lichen may have been taken the long way around the galaxy would be an understatement. Because they didn't have a great view of the other races, they avoided anything that so much as looked inhabited. Who would have thought their closest neighbours were the humans? While we have you, the lichen envoy, whose job was more of a title than anything until now, gestured for the human captain to duck as they walked into the only building large enough to accommodate the human's height. Might we ask you some questions? Certainly, the captain nodded before entering what could be described as a capitol building. When they stood, they could reach up and touch the ceiling, but just so. Why do you treat us so kindly? The envoy looked up at the human before nipping at a reporter who got too close. What have we done to make you, of all species and races, see us as equals? The human captain frowned in thought as they followed the envoy to a meeting chamber. To the human surprise, lichen seating arrangements consisted of soft cushions rather than chairs, so the captain and their crew were able to sit comfortably, while the envoy and other council members gathered. Well, why wouldn't we? He said. You're our best friends. The lichen council looked towards each other. What could that mean? How long have lichen and humans been friends? And could the answer be that simple? It seemed to be, as the captain didn't elaborate. The lichen council weren't entirely satisfied with the answer, as it only raised more questions, but at the same time, that made sense, didn't it? How did humanity know lichen would respond positively and reciprocate their offered hand? How did they know that a lichen's tail wag is a sign of joy or excitement? That they growl or snarl in warning? All these things took other races hundreds of years to understand and accept, but humanity understood right out of the gate. There was something deeper here, but right now the humans wanted to discuss trade and possible employment, while they expand and explore the galaxy. A few decades after humanity's initial landing on the lichen planet, one of the lead biologists and anthropologists had discovered something that could possibly explain humanity's odd ways, and had decided to call up the former human ambassador himself to discuss it with him. One of humanity's first ventures into space involved sending a creature known as a dog into space. After researching into the topic, the lichen scientists realized that there was a striking resemblance towards the dog in question and their earliest ancestor. No, they were not Terran dogs. They knew they had developed from an amorphous shapeshifter that eventually settled into the form all lichen take. It's why they can see, in real time, their species develop and evolve. However, if star charts and maps from over 10,000 years ago are to be believed, it's possible that this dog's appearance influenced their ancestors. The ambassador took the information good-naturedly, just like everything else humanity did, related to lichen, but there was a deep sadness in his voice when he elaborated about the space dog named Laika, a stray dog trained to be the first astronaut, who was destined to never come back home. A very important first step into knowing space and understanding how to traverse it, but a sad ending nevertheless. The ambassador grew teary-eyed as he ended his explanation, after expecting the lichen officials and reporters to be outraged or offended. To his surprise, or maybe just the lichens, the head council member has stood up and taken his hand, resting it on her head. The gesture would go down in both humanity's and lichen history as a sign of trust and friendship between the two species. Ever since, humanity has had the lichen at their side in many of their ventures into the furthest reaches of space, a companion whose loyalty would prove to rival humanity's. After all, they have always been each other's best friends, through thick and thin, the good times and the bad, through space and time.